Hey, sorry for the interruption, but we wanted to let you know that this week's episode is brought to you by Spotify for Podcasters. Really cool app. Josiah and I use it for every single show that we bring to you every week. You can edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so you can start creating as soon as you log into the platform. You can easily distribute your podcasts to Spotify and everywhere else the podcasts are heard, just like we do every single week. You can also create video podcasts on Spotify, which is really cool. And of course, you can earn money like I'm doing right now by including ads and even podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free. There's no catch. We really love it. We use it every single week. So we encourage you to go download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right, let's get back to the show.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Print on Demand Cast, the gold standard for print on demand information. And I just made that up. The award-winning podcast. What award, you ask? You'll see. We've earned them. Again, completely making it up. But it is good to be back on the show. Travis, how's it going over there in the office right next door to me?
It's going pretty good. Today was a Monday, so I'm glad to end it with a podcast and a little 11 ounces of liquid gold to help the day go down nicely.
Yes.
It was like a Monday and a half today. We had a couple people that weren't in the office. And then one of the stores that, on Deco blew up over the weekend. So we're getting a lot of things with that.
It did.
A lot of different things were going on today, weren't there? How was your Monday?
Yeah, it was
in the same exact
good.
place.
Yeah, it was good. Again, you came into my. This is kind of like a bullpen. We've got Amy that sits here, and then Tate, your production manager, and your son who sits there. So it is very much a bullpen environment. But you came in and you were like, "Hey, does this usually happen? Just Deco blows up overnight?" I'm like, "Yeah, when people launch new designs or whatever, it's kind of." It is very hit and miss. The last 2 weeks we've had Deco integrated to things. It was kind of like catching up and a smattering of things. And then this week it's like 42 orders overnight. And so it was crazy and had a lot of quotes and stuff to send out to people today, working on, getting some bulk orders and some contract work done. And so, knocked all of that out. Kind of, it seemed Mondays always seem to be slaying the closest dragon. You know what I mean? Like you have plans and then Monday happens, you're like, okay, I'm gonna take on the closest thing to me. So but overall, man, it was good. It was a good Monday, but I am like you, happy to be washing down Monday with the spoonful of sugar that is Blue Moon. I am excited about this episode, man. We don't really have a point of interest because it's another interview. But the dad joke is going to come during the interview. So you get 2 dad jokes again. I think we're trying to set a precedent to where the guests also bring a dad joke with them.
Right.
But this guest is unique in the fact that it is the first, as far as I know, avid listener, kind of fan of the show, coming on to the show because she also is running her own shop in Australia. So Fiona Darcy is going to be our interview. And if you're a listener and you're in the Facebook group, Fiona, she's contributed quite a bit and she comments all the time on the stuff we do. So Travis, talk a little bit how this came to be for her to be on the show. And, we just wrapped the interview. So what are you looking forward to our listeners hearing from Fiona?
Well, the interview kind of came from, I mentioned a few weeks ago, she fulfilled some things for me in Australia and in New Zealand, like 2 different orders for a client that I had that yeah, so when she did that, it just kind of got me thinking. I'm like, she's got a whole production facility. We should just have her on as an interview. And so she agreed. She was a little nervous, but she does really a great job.
Yeah.
She's got a very excuse me. She has a very how should I say, like kind of a laser focus, like intensity as far as like, she's had a lot of adversity and she just keeps going and she doesn't stop. And it's really paid off for her. And so that kind of, I'm hoping that is communicated in the interview. Just kind of that mindset of, if you want something, just keep going, because there's going to be setbacks. And in ministry, over the years, as I've, pastored and stuff, we would always talk about how, failing, the only failure is the one who doesn't get up after the failure, or after the something that happens. If you get up, that by definition, you're not a failure anymore. You can fail, but you're not a failure. And Fiona has failed. She's had stuff happen to her, but man, she is far from a failure, and she's really kind of kicking butt and taking names down under. And so I'm excited for the listeners to understand her story a little more and hopefully get some inspiration from it.
Yeah, I am. I'm looking forward to just, I feel like we have a lot of people who, maybe not gurus, that's not the right term, but people who have kind of established themselves in certain niches, experts, with KDP or Merch by Amazon with Chris Green, and a lot of people who have kind of, maybe in the listener's view, from the listener's viewpoint, are kind of like untouchable, right? Which isn't true, right? It's all attainable.
Yeah,
you put in the work. But to have Fiona on, who is a listener, who is, building it from the ground up over the last 6 years. So for other listeners to be able to hear her story, hopefully will also encourage them that, hey, this is someone that listens to the show, and I know Fiona. I see her on the Facebook group, and she's killing it in Australia. Okay, I can do this too, kind of thing. Right. So hopefully it brings encouragement to everybody. So with that, we are going to go to this week's main event.
Ladies and gentlemen, the main event.
All right, Travis, this week we have another guest, another interview, and it's super exciting to have this particular guest on, because she's actually an avid listener of the show, which we will cover with her. But we've got Fiona Darcy on the show with us today for this episode. Just a little bit about Fiona for those that you might not know her. If you've been in the Facebook group, you've probably seen her commenting and posting here and there. But Fiona started in the industry when her son was born in 2015 and got her first embroidery machine. Since then, she has grown Fusion T-shirts into a successful print and embroidery business over the past 6 years, with the help of a very good friend and mentor, Tone, which I hope that's how you say the name. It's Tone or Tony. We'll say Tone. We'll ask her when she comes on. Prior to any of this, she ran a 130-acre sheep farm in rural Victoria. Yes, she is from Australia. Health issues affected her ability to hold down a real job. However, the love for her POD business and the freedom of hours have improved her life immensely. Until now, Fiona has been working on average 14 hours a day solo, but just recently trialed her first staff member. Whether she's in the print room or the car, they are either listening to Micmacs, which I need to ask what that is, Encanto soundtrack, haven't seen that movie yet, or more than likely the POD cast. She is on her fourth time around, which is nuts. So I think she holds the record, and unless someone wants to dispute that, I think she is the record holder for most POD cast hours logged. But we are very, very happy to welcome Fiona Darcy to the Print on Demand cast. Fiona, thank you so much for taking time out of your day over there in Australia to join us on the show.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. What time is it over there in Australia? I was just talking to Travis about the time difference.
Sort of lunchtime on Tuesday morning.
Okay. So right now it's Monday. It's almost 6 here. So you're in the future. How is Tuesday?
Oh,
Do
yeah.
I want to
How's
go ahead and
going?
have a Tuesday?
Yeah, it's worth having a Tuesday. It sounds like it's better than a Monday, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking forward to Tuesday at this point. But anyway,
Yeah,
so you are, you're probably our biggest fan of the show. So we're super, super honored to have you on. You contribute a ton in the Facebook group and help and ask good questions. You also help people if you can. I actually shouted you out a few episodes ago. You've helped me with some print on demand fulfillment in Australia and New Zealand when I wasn't able to ship to those countries because of COVID. And you've just been a huge, a wonderful person to have in our kind of ecosphere, our group. And we really appreciate you taking the time in the middle of your day to come on and join us. So let's jump in and just hear like how you got started. I know
first.
We should do a dad joke. That's right. I'm so sorry, Josiah. I was going to skip right over that.
We are going to bring Fiona in on everyone's favorite segment, the weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right, we will give ours first, and then Fiona, you can follow up with yours. So,
okay.
Recently, I was at a birthday party, and I was watching a Mexican magician, and he was amazing. And for his last trick, he said he was going to disappear on the count of 3, and he went 1, 2, and then poof, he disappeared without a trace. And that's this week's weekly dad joke from your Print on Demand cast hosts. Fiona, let's hear your dad joke this week.
All right. Well, mine apparently were too lame. So I got one of the girls, like the new employee we've got, to give me hers. So apparently there's this new brand of fly spray that you can get. So she went into the shop to buy it, and she went up to the counter and she said, look, I've got this can of Mortine. It says it's new and improved. Is it any good for mozzies? And the guy behind the counter looked at her, shook his head and said, no, it bloody kills them. Yes.
The newest addition to this segment. Yes, Michael Scott. Can never go wrong.
Yes. Love Michael Scott. Yes.
Fantastic. All right, Travis, go ahead. I'll let you resume before I so rudely interrupted you, skipping everyone's favorite segment.
No, I feel bad. I almost skipped the dad joke, so please forgive me, Print on Demand cast listeners. So Fiona, tell us how you got started in print on demand. I know Josiah kind of alluded to it a little bit in your intro, but what gave you the impetus to actually jump in?
Well, as Josiah said, I run we still have the 130 odd acres sheep farm. So I was running that with my husband, and he also works full time. So he works about an hour and a half away. So he was doing it on the weekends. I was doing it during the week. And then my little fella was born. So he was born in 2015. And I just found I couldn't get out onto the farm as much as I'd like to. So, and for health reasons, I sort of haven't been able to get a real job as I've been told. So my aunt, who I adore, and my grandfather purchased me a secondhand embroidery machine, just a domestic Disney sort of one. Had nothing but headaches with it. So took it in to get it serviced. The guy told me, look, it just doesn't work. It's too old. And so sold me on a new one, and I've been hooked ever since. So I went from there to within about 6 months, I had 7 domestic embroidery machines, which I was running, and I never planned on it turning into a business. I was just having fun. But I've loved every minute of it. Embroidery is, I know most people hate it. I love to hate it, and I hate to love it, really. It's one of those. It's a bit of a nightmare, but I think because that was my first thing, once I focused and spent all my time on it, it just became second nature. And then from there we sort of grew, and we expanded into industrial embroidery machines. I say we, it's just me at the time. Expanded into industrial embroidery machine, and then the opportunity came up to buy a DTG printer. So we did that, and then met a very good friend and mentor of mine, Tone, You were right, Josiah. It is actually short for Tony, but I just
good.
We like to shorten everything in Australia, so everything. It's same number of letters, but it just sounds better. So Tone got me into that, and then listening to your podcasts and things like that, it's changed the way I look at things. So we've then expanded. So we did vinyl and all that sort of thing, and then that's been going for quite a few years. And now since listening to you guys, we have bought a wide format printer. So because we sort of looked at what was in the market and thought about it and thought, why not? So I'm sure there's a good reason why not, but it works okay. Yeah.
That's awesome. So where are you currently selling right now? Online, different channels, or what does that look like as far as where you are?
We have our own website, which we were using Shopify. And I don't know if you remember, we did have a bit of a chat about it through the Facebook, and then you went through a podcast for me, which was brilliant. I've listened to that one quite a few times to pick up things. So we're switching across to Deco Network, and thanks to Travis and Uncle Mike for the code. That was amazing. That made a big difference. So we're setting that platform up at the moment. So prior to that, we sell through Shopify on our own website. We also have some stuff on Etsy, but not much. And then that's pretty much the only place we really sort of aim, because up until now we've done like customers and organizations and businesses and things. We do their garments. So it's only since listening to you guys that we've actually looked at it and gone, hey, we could actually do print on demand the way that you guys do. So we've got all the facility here. We just need more manpower. So
yeah, that's awesome.
So skipping ahead on our little outline here, I'm just curious because you said your business kind of started with local, right? And then after you were doing local, then you moved to e-commerce and then potentially even Etsy and some of the channels. I'm curious, like, what is your percentage of like local business to online orders? And is there a plan to like increase one or the other?
Yeah. So we started. So when I met Tone, so he's actually a senior graphic designer. He's amazing, and so he does a lot of our graphics. Like he designed the wallpaper for me. He's just phenomenal.
Wow. I was going to ask. That looks amazing behind. If you're not watching on the YouTube channel, she's got this incredible banner behind her that has all this vivid color that we asked her before we pressed record. She actually printed it on. You printed it on your new wide format printer. Yeah. It looks gorgeous.
Thank you. Yes. Well, Tone designed it because. And look, that's why I say he's more than just a friend. He's, I just ring him and say, the walls in here are boring. And he said, all right, I can get on to it. And so, I mean, like, we're paying him, obviously. He does work for the love of it. But, so when I met him, he owned Fusion T-shirts. So I owned a different business, but it was exactly the same thing. And so he wanted to get out of it after a while. So I ended up purchasing all of his equipment from him. And he sold me the business for $1 on top of all of his equipment, which is phenomenal. Yeah. Because as he said, like he knew that I had the drive and wanted to take it further. Yeah. And it's been his baby for many years, and he didn't sort of want it to be ending. So he's still on board, and his lovely wife Gab, they're like our biggest supporters. So when we bought it from him, we also gained all of his clientele, all of his customers.
Yeah.
So he does a lot of big business, like they get their shirts, they get their promotional gear that they put in their stores. So we never really had the need for an online shop until COVID hit. And then we thought, look, we've got the time, let's diversify and do some stuff so we can't go anywhere. So that was really good. Not COVID itself, but the fact that we had that break.
Yeah.
So and it was good because it kept him turning over. It kept us turning over, and so since then, and like I said, listening to you guys, we've got now the print on demand mentality, I suppose you'd say.
Sure.
So we do a lot of charity work, and we don't charge profit on that sort of thing. So we've got an organisation over here in Australia called Friend in Me, and so they without going into too much detail, it's for kids that. It started by one little boy who had disabilities and wasn't invited to a birthday party. And then no one came to his birthday party, which you can imagine would be absolutely heartbreaking as a parent. And so a friend of mine, Lou, started this organisation for all the kids, essentially, to feel included. And so their theory is their motto is no child left behind. So they were pretty much our only major customer that we had before we got the business from Tone and amalgamated the two. And so they're still on board. They're still fantastic. But we've learnt through them that we can offer things online and do print on demand, because that's what we do for them. We just never had a name for it. So, and I'm sorry I've rambled that long. I forgot the rest of the question.
No, I was just asking what the percentages of like local to what we would call print on demand.
So we were probably 80-20, so 80 local, 20 sort of print on demand. And we're now we've pretty much reversed that completely. And we're, especially with the Deco network, because we're able to offer people, set up your own store, we print for you, which is something that's, I'm not going to say it's unheard of in Australia, but I think there's only like 3 or 4 guys doing it, and they're all the big guys, so you don't get that personal touch.
Sure. Wow.
Yeah. So we're just sort of implementing that now, and it's been fantastic so far. Everybody's sort of got on board, and
yeah. That's awesome. So you mentioned you have the wide format printer that you said was our fault that you have it now.
That's correct, yes.
Embroidery, a DTG printer. So that's 3. What other print methods do you have? And how do you determine which one you'll use for which products you offer? So kind of give us a rundown of what's all in your shop.
So that's actually a really good question. So we've got sublimation. So we've got a wide format sublimation printer. We can do vinyl. We've got the wide format printer, which does wallpaper, stickers, almost anything you can think of. We've got our DTG printer, which we've upgraded. We've got the Epson. They call it a 2160 here, but I think it's 2100 to you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're looking at upgrading that in the next couple of months to the big fella, because you've talked about it. And now I'm
another thing she can blame us for.
I will send you the bill for that one, though. No. We've got embroidery and we've got Oki. So we've got the six different processes. We did have there is technically 7, because we can do different stuff on the wide format printer, but it's really just six processes. Sure. And as for how do we know which one to use for each? So when a garment comes in, when an order comes in, if it's sublimation, you guys know if it's sublimation, it's sublimation. The main and vinyl is pretty. We don't really do a lot of vinyl because we've got the DTG and I love it.
Right.
So we do vinyl if that's what the customer's after, or if it's after something specific. But or if it's, as you know, poly. So not 100% cotton if you can't do it on that. But the Oki is actually one which is, so the Oki is I don't know what it's called. It's a white toner
printer, right?
That's it. Yeah, I think Oki's just the brand. I think so.
Right. Oki's the brand of the actual printer, but then they basically take out the black toner and replace it with white toner, so you can have kind of a full color image that then you can use to print or adhere, heat press to pretty much any type of garment or fabric or pretty much anything, right?
And you can do anything with it. Like we've done, we've actually printed it on walls just for a bit of fun.
Oh wow!
But you can put it on drink bottles, flasks, anything really. Teddy bears. We do it like anything that. I guess that's sort of our. If none of the other processes will work on it, would be ideal. That's when we use Oki.
Yeah, we actually had, and I see. I've looked at the white toner printers for years, and at the end of the day, I said no, I don't like that, because I was comparing it to the cost of like a DTG print, and it's just, to me, it was way higher with an Oki print, like a full sheet of Oki, the toner printer, versus, because you have to pay for the sheet and then you have to pay for the adhesion and just all these different things, versus DTG. It was kind of to me, it was cheaper, but I can see where that would really come in handy if you had a full color sleeve print or something on a shirt, or, something else. We just recently did some shirts for a church that wanted a sleeve print. We couldn't actually do them. So, we could, but it was only like 5 or 6 shirts, and we're going to do a whole bunch more. But, had we had an Oki printer, we could have used one and just printed a whole bunch of these little teeny tiny things all across the page. And, for $5 or whatever, $4, we could have had like 20 of these little crosses and then we could have, adhered them really easy to the sleeves and to wherever they needed us to. So I think there are applications, like you're saying, for pretty much every type of print technology. What do you guys find you're using that white toner printer for the most?
Well, like you say, the batching, so like you could print a heap of them, but what we actually do is I'm not going to say sneaky, we're a little bit switched on. That's not even the right, I don't know what the expression would be, but so if we only need, so we print them on A3 because it's cheaper. So if we only need half that sheet for the customer stuff, what we do is we just fill up, because we use Illustrator to set up all our artwork. So we just set it up on an A3 page and we fill every bit of blank space with our logo. So that way, so we press our logo into the back of every T-shirt that we sell.
Nice.
Not that we sell for other customers, but ones that come through us. Like if we do football teams, we not only have our own hang tag, but we will press those in there. So that comes in handy for that. Our biggest thing with the Oki is probably hoodies. I mean, I know you can do them on the DTG, but as you've discussed before, because of the pocket,
the platen height it can look not as crisp as you would want it to comparatively to like a transfer vinyl or the Oki for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And sorry, the other thing that we actually came up with the other day, which was it could have been a massive disaster. We were doing a fitness group, and they had this tiny lettering around, but it's around in a loop. So when we tried to cut it on the vinyl cutter, it just wouldn't work. So we Oki'd them, and everything was flawless. Like it does 1/4 of an inch high, really fine text, and there's no weeding. You just it's a bit of a learning curve.
That's nice.
But so it saved our butt a few times.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. So tell us, which of all these toys that you have? Well, so was there anything else? Did we cut you off on the Oki? Were there any other print methods
that was
okay.
It, yep.
So which one's your favorite? And like Josiah said before we pressed record, which is your least favorite and why is it embroidery?
But it's not embroidery, which is what I'm curious, because everything else sounds like a blast. Embroidery makes me want to drink more of these.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie. Embroidery has probably driven me to drink a few times. It is only lunchtime, so I won't today. But look, I love embroidery only because I started with embroidery. And so I was naive and energetic and enthusiastic and had nothing else really to put my time into. So, but an industrial embroidery machine is so much better than when you have sat and dealt with a single thread. Look, there's nothing against the Janome. I loved it, but we had 7 running at any given time. And now I've got the multi-needle ones. It's heaven. So, but the same can be said about the DTG. We started with an M2. I don't know if you guys, well, you would have seen.
Yeah, I've seen the M2. That's that is the M2. It has the 2 platens, right?
Yes.
And you can run 2 at a time. Yeah, I think Brandon O'Connor, who we had on back, they started with that before they got their 3070s. But they were running those for quite a while, and I think they had 2 of those, so they had 4 platens. But they obviously were just jumping for joy when they got the 3070s because they were so much faster, even just with a single platen. It was just not even comparable.
And it's amazing the difference, because I actually had 3 M2s running at any given time before we moved out, because we were in the house instead of our facility out here. And when I went to an expo and saw the Epson running, and the guy there, Gary, really nice guy, said to me, "Come and look at this." And I'm like, no, I love the M2s, just leave me alone. And he ended up dragging me over. And the first T-shirt he printed, I'm not going to lie, I looked at and thought, I can do better than that in my sleep. But then the second T-shirt that they actually printed properly just blew my mind. And it was just, I've actually still got it many, many years later. It's sitting in a cupboard. I want to frame it, but I didn't print it. So, but it's actually, it's beautiful. And so that's what sold me on it. That and I don't have to spend 3 hours a day cleaning it. So the maintenance on the Epson is just phenomenal. Lack of maintenance. Yeah,
absolutely. So we talked a little bit about Deco Network, which I would love to hear more about as far as what your experience has been, what you think of it so far. Because we use Deco here. I've used Deco for years. But apart from just Deco, are there any other tools that you use that are specific for print on demand? Any other softwares you use or anything like that?
Hang on, sorry, 1 sec. I just
you're good.
It's nearly flat. There we go. It wasn't charging.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we've got into Deco. We don't really use any other tools specifically except for the artwork side. So we use Illustrator and that sort of thing, and the rips that come with the programs. But other than that, I found Shopify was frustrating, and Etsy also in the same sort of thing, until I listened to a podcast that you had where you could have smart objects. I didn't even know they existed. So, yeah, so I set those up that day I listened to it. And then I think I listened to it 3 or 4 times while I was doing it, and each time I picked up something new. So that sort of thing in the software like Illustrator and Photoshop has made a massive difference. But other than Deco Network is just, it's come a long way. I think it's not that it's come a long way. We've come a long way since I first started, trialed it out, and now I'm using it for something a bit different. So it's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just mentioned like one kind of takeaway you got from the PODcast, and not to be too, I don't know, humble brag or whatever, but I'm just curious. I mean, first of all, thank you a million times over. We've said it 1,000 times. It's crazy to have somebody listen to you talk about something multiple times, and just listen so often. I'm just curious if there's like 1 or 2 things that you're like, oh, this really changed our business. And like when you heard it, and maybe we can even like look it up and, find the episode number so we can tell the listeners, where those things were. Do you have anything like 1 or 2 things? You just mentioned one about the smart objects. I don't even know when we talked about that. I can't find that episode.
I was going to say I could probably tell you I've listened to it a few times. It was when you were talking about different softwares you can use. So, and I did have a list of them on the whiteboard. Yeah. And there were other sort of plugins that you can use with Photoshop. But to answer your question, one of the second biggest takeaway would be having listened to you Travis saying about organizing your files. I've always sort of I get the feeling Josiah's on the same sort of page. It's like, yeah, worry about it later. I could be wrong, but it's been one of those things where I think I thought my files were well sorted out until we started getting more and more orders and having to look up files for customers. And so then I sat there and wrote down, it's on the whiteboard next to me, the design ID and how you put in a spreadsheet, which I've never thought of doing. So that has made a massive difference, especially now. We've got other people in here, not just myself. So that's made a massive difference. But probably the number one takeaway is that, to be honest, I'm not alone. And I just love hearing about all the new technology and all the things that like the point of interest, obviously, but the other things that you find and you share. And I'm not going to lie, I do sort of dance and sing around to the point of interest song, but that's
awesome.
No shade. We're throwing no shade. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, and I will say that my 6-year-old has spent probably the first 3 months asking who Aunt Jackie and Uncle Mike are.
When are they coming to visit?
Yeah, and he keeps saying, are they my aunt and uncle or yours? I'm like, no. And then he thinks they're yours. So I just figure we'll let him go with that.
Yeah, let him believe it. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's too funny. Well, the episode you're referring to is the PODcast episode 10, organizing your SKUs and designs. And I go into detail about how I did it. And it's not the only way to do it, but it's something to at least consider when you don't have a lot of designs, because if you implement it now, when you do have a lot, you'll really be thanking us that later. So take a listen to episode 10. I'm glad that helped you, Fiona. I know it's helped. We've gotten comments that really helped some other people too. So I know, in fact, it even helped Josiah's wife, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm with you, Fiona. I was kind of like, yeah, we'll get to it later. It was more emphasis on just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what was going to work.
Definitely.
But yeah, and the other one that you were talking about, I think, when talking about smart objects, might be episode 28. We talked about free Photoshop alternatives and Photoshop itself.
That was the one.
And that's where Travis kind of delved into smart objects as well. So that might be, so go ahead and take a listen to episode 28 as well if you're listening. So yeah, but I just want to echo Travis.
Listen to them all.
Yeah. 5 times. Catch up with Fiona.
One of them, every time we listen to it again, there's like nuggets of gold in just every single podcast that you might miss the first time or second time or third time, but you will eventually pick it up.
Yeah, well, I echo Travis's sentiment where it's awesome. We're very thankful for your listenership. If you ask Travis, he'd probably say the same thing, that our wives don't think we're as funny as we think we are. So the fact that anyone listens to what we say once is awesome enough.
Right.
5 times around is awesome.
No, well, I really appreciate it, and it's fantastic because I'm in the same boat. Look, I could talk about business, like the print on demand business, all day long, and my poor darling husband's eyes just glaze over after not even 5 minutes. He's deaf in one ear and he's ignorant in the other, and then he doesn't want to know. And my darling aunt who does work for me quite often, she'll come in, and as soon as I start talking, and like obviously she's my aunt, I've known her my whole life. And
oh my gosh.
I probably talked to about 15, 20 phone calls a day at least. If she's not working in here, because she lives about an hour away. And so when every time I ring her, there is not a phone call where we don't talk about it, and that's normally when you'll hear her hang up.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, we could roll the credits now, because that line that
was the best.
Deaf in one ear and ignorant in the other is probably the best one-liner in the history of the
That's okay, because I do say it to his face. So
that's so funny. Oh,
yeah,
that's great.
So Fiona, let's what's next for Fusion T-shirts? So are you wanting to add more print technologies? Are you kind of maxed out right now? Are you wanting to be on additional platforms? Like, what's the future of your business?
Yeah, basically what Travis is asking is, what else can we talk you into buying and letting us know how it works?
almost anything. Look, I didn't actually know about direct to film, but I do now. So, but the Oak is kind of taken.
It's very similar.
That here, yeah.
Sure.
And the best part is we don't have to order transfers and wait for them. I just do the artwork and we push print. So where are we headed now? Hopefully, well, now we've got the Deco Network. We're looking at letting people set up their own stores, like you guys do. Let them set up their own stores, and then we just are essentially a print fulfillment center, which, like I said, is what we've been doing. But we have been setting up the stores for people. So we do a lot of, like I said before, charities and organizations and things.
Sure.
And so we were doing that and trying to get it all to fit into the Shopify, which just became an absolute mess. So now everybody can set up their own store. I don't have to spend, 6 hours a day setting up artwork and things for people.
Sure.
And then we can just focus on the printing. I mean, I'm still looking at keeping the local businesses and any new local jobs that come in, but rather than doing up proofs and then sending them back and forward, we just set them up with a store, and then as they order, they continue to order. It's easier for them, it's easier for us.
Yeah.
So the hope is we'll be outgrowing this facility very, very soon.
Yeah.
And this facility, I'm just curious, this facility is on your property, right?
It is.
Is that where it is? Okay. So if you do outgrow it, are you going to build another facility on your property, add on to that one, or move off your property? What's the plan there?
No, it'll be on the property. So we had a 3-bay shed, which is roughly, it's not as big as I'd like it to be. It's roughly 60 feet by 20 feet. It's funny, in Australia, everyone talks in meters, but I just can't wrap my head around that. So I was brought up with feet and inches, so that's it. And so that's essentially everything's crammed in at the moment. And we've got a storeroom aside from that, and got a couple of shipping containers and things, and we've got the office in the house. And then the way the farm works is, I used to run it, and then we had a little bit of a falling out over who did a better job. So he now, I used to tell him, runs the farm, He doesn't run it. He just sits there. But the sheep run it. So
sheep run themselves.
Yeah, let's hope he doesn't listen to this, but it's the truth. So we had an old house on the place in which we've knocked down. So I've got a block of land. Everything I own is inside a post and rail fence on the house block, and the rest of it's surrounded by the farm, which is his land. So that's up for discussion. But so that there's enough room there to build quite a few 1,000 square foot facility, double story if we want to.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That would be fantastic. Then we'll move all of our fulfillment to you.
Yeah.
We'll all move to Australia.
Australia. Yeah. That's awesome. All right. So, Fiona, that this is the point of every interview where we ask the guests 3 questions that we have here that are part of what we like to call the magic questions.
Absolutely.
Some crazy how we are not copyright struck ever.
I've got to say, I do love that bumper though, and seeing the t-shirts on there because I think when Travis first mentioned it, I didn't know you could, because we did listen through Spotify, so I always have the phone on now and have it podcasted. Cast to the tally, I can watch it on the tally now. So I love those
that's awesome. Yeah. Every time we upload it to YouTube, YouTube says no copyright strikes. So
there you go.
We are under the radar until they heard me say that. Yeah. All right, Travis. All right, let's go with the first magic question.
Okay, if you, Fiona, had one print-on-demand tip to offer, what would it be?
If I could give 2, the first one would be obviously listen to the podcast. And the second one would probably be you have to believe in yourself. So you've just got to give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? Obviously, like, you could go broke, but I mean, don't jump in sort of all at once, but at least have. If it's what you want to do, give it a go.
Yeah.
So awesome. Don't give up too quickly is what I hear you saying.
And look, if you really want to learn embroidery, prepare to be drunk all the time. But no, seriously, no. Yeah, don't be put off yet. Look at Josiah's like, yep.
Sure. Yeah.
Or you can outsource it. You can outsource it to us or Fiona, and problem solved.
So do you guys do embroidery? You don't do it yourself, though, do you, Travis? Because you're smarter than that.
No, I am not smarter than that. It's here.
Yeah. See, and you love every minute of it. There you go.
I don't personally do it.
You didn't touch it.
Oh, see, that's
be real here.
Yeah. No, I'm still waiting for Melco to reimburse me for my medical bills because my liver failed. I'm drinking so much alcohol. Next one. Let's go with. Tell us about a time when something happened in your business that felt like a failure. You've talked about not stopping and really believing in yourself. Was there a moment in your business where something happened where you had to really kind of step back and say, okay, is this what I want to do? Because this didn't go how I wanted it to. And how did you overcome that?
So there's, I was going to say, if we've got all day, there's quite a few. And so, but way back at the start, I guess I'll make it, it's quite a long story, but I'll make it quite brief for you, hopefully. When I got out of the domestic embroidery machines, the reason I got out of those was I found one online, an industrial twin head unicorn we'll go with. And as we know, it looks like it's good, but when you get up close, it's just a horse or a donkey wearing a horn. So I spent all this money on it that I invested everything that I had to buy it. It would have been cheaper to buy a new one. I wasn't really that sort of up to it. And so when I got it, it was broken and it never ran properly. And then the technician that was servicing it at the time sold me the Avantes that we've got now. But he also sold me the M2, which was a lemon from day one. So I probably should have learned from the first thing I bought through him. But Look, I wasted a good $40,000-$50,000 that I didn't have, and that was probably the lowest. Yeah, that was probably the lowest point that I've that wasn't just for the one machine. That was because, like yourself, you just keep throwing money at things. That was the lowest point I've had as a business, and I thought if I didn't have that, I guess you'd say the love for the printing and embroidery more so at that point because that's all I had, I would have just walked away. Yeah. So
wow. No, that's that's amazing. I mean, that you continue to, kind of come back from that, with that being one of your first experiences. I could see how that would cause a lot of people to just, put their tail between their legs and never come back. So kudos to you for sticking around and pushing through that.
Thank you. And also the upside of that is, like I was saying before, there's always a positive, is that if I hadn't have bought that the M2 printer and had the nightmares I had, I wouldn't have met Tone, I wouldn't have bought Fusion, and I would have probably been dead in the water because, as I'm sure a lot of people know, you sold these printers. I'm not sure if it's the same over there. And they say, oh, look, it's essentially a business in a box. I didn't know the first thing about Illustrator, or we were told, oh, you just go. It's and
not
buy
a business in a box.
No, far from it. And so since meeting Tone, now I've got this amazing senior graphic designer and mentor and everything else. And so, without him, it would have we would have been dead in the water. So, I mean, there's the silver lining in that. It cost me a fortune, but we got something out of it.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. All right, Travis, one more?
Yeah. All right. Well, you've mentioned Tone being kind of a mentor to you. You've mentioned us. So I won't ask you the question about how important mentoring relationships and, being in community with other people of like-minded, just in like-minded ideas is important, because we know that that's important. So I'm going to ask you the other one. If you had to start all over, you lost all your contacts, you don't know Tone anymore. Actually, you know what? You can know him, but you don't have anything, you don't have any print equipment. What would you do first?
After I cried and probably far too much at the alcohol shop, after that, and that's funny because I hear you ask other people this question. I'm like, it's so easy to answer. But now I'm here. What would I do? I'd probably I would go about things a completely different way to how I did at the start. I would take the knowledge. I'm guessing I still have the knowledge I have. I just don't.
Of course.
Sure.
Have the business. Yeah. I don't think I would be like a little kid in a lolly shop and go, I'm having one of these. I'd pick one. It wouldn't be embroidery. Pick one process and just start with that. So for me, it would probably be either DTG, which is, look, if embroidery wasn't listening, I'd say that was my favorite process, or the wide format printer. Yeah.
Okay.
And start there.
That's awesome.
So what would you do? Like, how would you get clients? How would you, I'm just curious. I'm going to keep digging, I guess. So keep talking.
Yeah. So I guess I would use the things that I've learned over the past, 6 or 7 years. And because now I've got a better idea of what people actually want. Like when I started with Deco Network, we had it so people could put their own designs on, and it cost us a fortune because people just aren't confident enough that it's going to come out looking good if they're choosing the placement. That was the feedback we got. So I think I would set it up the way we're looking to do now. I would just possibly outsource a lot of the things until I knew they were going to work, and then I'd invest in the technology. So I'd still sign up to Deco Network, and I sound like I'm plugging them. That's not the case. I don't get paid. But it's just, it's been an absolute game changer, the way we do things. So yeah, and probably reach out to a lot of the businesses and organizations that we have going back, you did a podcast and you mentioned Simon Sinek, I think his name was.
Mm-hmm.
And so, naturally, the addictive personality I have, I went and bought all his books and read them all. And I found that my why is probably not unlike yours, from what I've heard, is just to help people and try to make a difference in the world. Yeah, so I'd probably reach out to the organisations. I like animals more than people, so they would probably be my first call.
That's awesome.
And just
so Yeah, I was actually talking to Josiah. I was like, she has a sheep farm. She probably knows all about sheep disease. And you just confirmed it. You like animals more than people.
Yes. And it is funny because when I was actually listening to that podcast this morning, that just happened to be the one and that's why we're now on the 5th term round, because we've just finished the 4th. And but last night I actually said to Chris, my husband, I said, have you ever heard of sheep disease? And he looked at me like I was stupid. And he said, yeah, which disease? And I'm like, no, sheep disease. And he just did not get it. He got out his like Hungerford's book, and he's like, I know it's not in here. I thought, yeah,
that's
pushing pull uphill, but yes, we do get a bit of sheep disease, and we do have customers that you do have to just fire. They're just they're just not a good fit for whatever reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Fiona, as we wind down here, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on to the show. I want to give you an opportunity to plug your shop, Fusion T-shirts, let people know where they can find you, follow you, find out more about you, support what you're doing. So before we wrap up, go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So we are, we're online. It'd be awkward, I suppose, if we weren't being in Australia, but sorry. So it's www.fusiontshirts, so FUSIONTEESHIRTS, just to be different, .com.au. And so you jump on there. There's actually a link where you can create your own Deco Network store. So any customers that aren't in Australia, or are in Australia anyway, if you want to expand and start selling in Australia, we're more than happy to have anyone. So we're there. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Now that we've got a new girl starting, we will be a bit more on Facebook and Instagram. It's just been a bit too hard to do that on my own.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's pretty. And we're like yourselves. We don't. We did look at having a fee to set up the Deco Network, but then we figured, look, it's not costing us anything. Just just share the love, I suppose.
Well, then you're also in our Facebook group. Of course, if people want to reach out to you, they can come into the Facebook group and tag you in a question or whatever. But I would imagine there's probably people. I mean, like I said earlier, I have used you to fulfill some orders for me, and I'm just going to call you out right now. Fiona, you need to send me that invoice so I can invoice that client.
Yeah, well, it's been a bit busy.
Yeah, 14-hour days. I get it.
They've been 18 hours lately, but hopefully that'll start easing up soon.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not complaining. Like, I love the work.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Fiona, thank you so much for coming on the show and been supporting us and forcing your employee to listen to us 5 times over.
That's quite all right.
Hopefully.
My aunt did say after the first 3 episodes, she said, I can't anymore. And it's not you guys. It's not you guys. It's just because she hears about print on demand day in, day out. But she did say the other day, this is one she may listen to. So we'll see.
Well, shout out to your aunt if she's listening to this episode. Yeah. And don't tell her that we shouted her out. See if she made it to 46 minutes in.
She'll be in here listening to it. She won't have a choice.
Okay. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day working, Fiona's aunt, as you're listening to this show. But yeah, Fiona, thank you so much. Hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. Let us know how the rest of Tuesday is as we are about to enter Tuesday. So, but thank you so much. And hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Yep. No worries. Thanks, guys.
We want to thank Fiona again for taking time out of her day there in Australia to come on the show. The time difference still blows my mind for some reason. I probably spent like legitimately 5 minutes really trying to figure out the time difference in Australia because I was just trying to wrap my mind. What is happening? Like, how is it not going to be in the middle of the night for her? I don't know. I have no grid for time outside of the contiguous United States. No idea. If it's not past Eastern time zone, Google it. It's my motto. But Travis, I thought she did really well. I know she mentioned a couple of times before she pressed record that she was nervous. But after the interview, she said that that wasn't scary at all, which we knew it wouldn't be because we are in real life like we are on the show. So how do you think it went now that it's all wrapped?
Yeah, I think she did great. I don't think anybody, if we wouldn't have said anything, no one would have known she was nervous. She did a great job. She communicated, well, and And yeah, I love her story. I love her drive. I love her passion for helping people. I think that's why one of the reasons why she's so active in our Facebook group.
Yeah.
Because she just wants to help people, and you could tell, like, with her work with charity and all of these different things, she's really kind of going for it. So it was good finally also just actually getting to talk to her, because I've had a lot of like Facebook messages with her as we were going through some of the orders that she fulfilled for me. And she's really kind. And, when we were messaging back and forth, but you can tell now that we've actually talked over, face to face, so to speak, you can tell that it's real, it's genuine. And she's a good person. She's a great person to kind of know and just have in our corner and as part of the Print on Demand Cast community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you alluded to it before we went to the interview, but she talked a lot about when we asked one of the questions as far as a time something felt like a failure, and how she talked about, wow, this really, I spent $50,000 I didn't have. And then she was quick to follow it up with, but if that didn't happen, then I would have never met Tone. I would have never done this. And so it just really speaks to how sometimes it's hard to kind of see the bigger picture when you're in the thick of it. Kind of like it's hard to see the forest through the trees. But that it is good to realize that sometimes the failures set you up for something different than maybe you had in mind, but the setback is not necessarily the end. It's just kind of a readjustment to something that you didn't even think was going to happen. And so failure, oftentimes, if you keep going, I always reference the Winston Churchill quote that success is moving from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. But it really is true, because if had Fiona quit at that moment, she would not have gotten Fusion t-shirts. She wouldn't be building the business to what it is over the last 6 years. I mean, the failure is a very good learning opportunity if you learn to embrace the suck, which is another often parroted and touted and saying, but it's true.
Yep, I totally agree. Yeah, she went through it, and she is on the other side of it, in some ways. And so she's kind of proof that if you stick with something long enough and put enough, passion and hard work into it, you can succeed. And I think that is one of the biggest and most important lesson that anybody listening to any print on demand media, be it YouTube or this podcast or another person's podcast, that's like the number one lesson in print on demand, because you ain't going to get rich overnight. You're not going to it's not success overnight. It's just not. You got to work hard, and and she's done that, and the proof is in the pudding, I guess, is all I'll say.
Yep. 100%. So again, Fiona, thank you so much for coming on the show. Hopefully your own interview provided you with some gold nuggets when you inevitably have listened to this for the third time. Hopefully, hopefully, those around you. I mean, I think everyone's going to gain a lot of inspiration and a lot of nuggets from what she had to say. So with that, everybody, thank you guys so much for listening again to another episode of the Print on Demand Cast. I know we alluded to it in the interview, but Travis and I are always very thankful for anybody's listenership. Whether you've listened to the show once, or you listened to the show 5 times, or this is your first time listening to a single episode, thank you guys so much for clicking play, for clicking subscribe. If you want to know more, if you want to be a part of the conversation, of course, as always, you can join the Facebook group, facebook.com/group/print on demand cast. You can join the group, the conversation. If you have a question for Fiona, that's where you can go. She's very active in that Facebook group as well. We have an instagram.com/print on demand cast. You can find us there. We have a YouTube channel. This is the video version of this is going to be on YouTube every Friday at 3:00 Mountain Standard Time, of course, because we live in Colorado. None of that Eastern stuff, because I don't live on the East Coast. 3:00 Mountain Standard Time, but the video version is also on Spotify, so you can avail yourself of that as well. And so if you're wondering about these bumpers that we keep referencing when we show guests or throw them on the screen, you're going to want to watch the video version. Just do it. So if you're listening, though, on the Apple Podcast app. Please take time and leave us a 5-star review and let us know what you think of the show. You can rate us also on Spotify in the podcast feed. There's a little star button. Click that, rate it, and let us know what you think of the show. But if you're not listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, don't worry, because we are on like 9 other platforms, of which I don't even know all of them. Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, who knows? But we're there. We're there. So wherever there are podcasts, the PODcast is there for you. If you don't do social media, we understand. You can email us, info@printondemandcast.com. Let us know if you have any questions, any topic suggestions, any guest suggestions, whatever it is, we want to hear from you. So, Travis, anything else before we wrap this thing up?
Not a thing. That was a great interview. Appreciate you, Fiona, and Fiona's aunt. Hello. If you made it this far, just wanted to give you a shout out.
A second shout out to Fiona's aunt and a shout out to the new employee. Yeah. Congratulations for finding a POD position. And I can tell from the interview, Fiona is an awesome boss. So you are very lucky to be working in such an awesome shop with such an awesome boss. So anyway, thank you guys so much. For Travis, I'm Josiah, and we'll see you next time right here on the Print on Demand Cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.